Hello, hello, hello. Angel here. Thanks for stopping by if you've been here before, and if you're new, welcome to my channel. Do you know what? I finally did it. I finally took my Wild Unknown tarot deck out into the wild unknown. As well as the Faceted Garden, of course. I've been speaking, if you've been watching my channel the last few weeks or the last few months, I've been speaking a lot about the draw that I've been feeling to birch tree energy, and I've really wanted to go outside and take my Wild Unknown tarot deck out with me, as well as the Faceted Garden, and, you know, connect to that birch tree energy. And I finally did it today. So with that being said, I'm going to show you, you know, some things that happened and some sights that I saw in the forest. Enjoy. So today was the day that I decided to take my Wild Unknown out into the wild unknown. I've been quite hesitant to do that, I have to say. There's not many people know that I do tarot where I live. I think there's just one person who actually, in fact. And so it was a bit of a big deal. But, you know, she who dares wins. So here I was standing just on the edge of the pathway that I usually take to work. I'm really lucky to live so close to nature. I can literally stumble out of my front door and, yeah, and I'm in the woods pretty much. So I'm really, really lucky. It was a beautiful day. The sun was shining. Birds were singing. And the bees were bumbling. I don't know, what do bees do? So I decided to make my way along this path. I've walked this path once or twice before, I have to say, although not as many times as I should have done, living so close to nature. I've got to say this is a bit of a skill, holding the camera steadily whilst walking. This was a new, yeah, this was a new kind of video for me. I did enjoy making it, I have to say, but yeah, you've got to watch your step when you're walking in the woods, I've got to tell you. So, you know, I made my way along this path, looking out for some birch trees. As you see, there's quite a few on the right-hand side. I'm always drawn to the right-hand path as well. That's really interesting. I don't tend to look to the left. That's very interesting. Anyway, so I continued on my way. I came upon this tree. I do like the patterns of the bark on the birch tree, I have to say. This was a really tall one. Look at that beautiful blue sky. This was a little bit too close to the pathway for me to start doing a tarot read, or a tarot spread, or a tarot draw even. So I decided to continue on the path and to see if there was any other trees that that called to me. And you'll see this one coming up here. This also called to me. But the same again, it was on the path. But again, that pattern work on the bark is really calling to me. And actually that's the reason that the Wild Unknown tarot deck came to mind, because of the lines on the birch bark really made me think of the lines in that tarot deck. And it's a deck that I haven't used in my collection. It's just been sitting on my tarot shelf, and so I felt that it could really help me connect with the birch energy. So he was a really strong contender. I've come across this tree before, and I've even taken a picture of this one. I really like the little nooks and crannies in this tree and the patterns again. However, again, it was a bit too close to the path, and I didn't want anybody jumping out from behind a tree, surprising me, whilst being in the middle of a tarot spread. So yeah, I just continued to soak in the energy, to soak in the atmosphere. I loved how silent it was in the woods. It was just the birds singing and the insects buzzing around. It was beautiful. So here was this little fellow busy at work. And as you can see, the rays of sunshine making their way through the trees. It was just such a beautiful day. It's actually the first time, I think it's terrible to say, but it's actually the first time that I've felt the sun on my skin in a really long time. So it's really nice to be outside. Here's another busy insect And I want to say that these are blueberry plants, but I possibly am wrong, so don't quote me on that. But these were very popular with the bees and the other insects. It was just so peaceful being outside. Not having anybody in sight or, you know, close by. It was just wonderful. So I have done some research into the birch tree, and the bark of the birch tree usually sheds, much like a snake sheds its skin, and the bark only cracks when there's been a sudden growth within the tree. So the bark has to crack to allow the tree to continue to grow, which I thought was a really interesting metaphor for my healing journey as well. Maybe that's the reason I've been drawn to the birch tree, I don't know. So I was almost at the end of this part of the woods, of the forest. I knew there was a trail coming up quite soon, a trail that I've run before. So I decided to, I wasn't too sure if I should continue on this trail or to go back into the other side of the woods. It's a holiday weekend this weekend, so I wonder if it's quiet because a lot of people have gone away for this weekend. Either way, it suited me perfectly. Yeah, I decided to, you know, cross the trail and go into this side of the woods. I haven't been in the woods here before, but I really felt drawn to it, so, you know, I decided to take a look around. I didn't see too many birch trees here right at the beginning of this side of the woods. There was more pine trees and fir trees, and then I kind of suddenly felt drawn to this tree here with the roots that were cascading down the bank. This totally gave me an ancestral vibe, and I think it was because when just as I started my ancestral practice, I drew a card from the soul cards deck of a person sitting on the stump of a tree, and that stump had these roots that were going very deeply into the ground, and the person sitting on the stump was, you know, deep in thought, and these roots totally reminded me of that card. So I decided to take a stop and to sit down and to do a reading, even though this wasn't a birch tree. So I climbed up the bank, yeah, and I did a reading. So as I turned around, I noticed this root poking up from the ground, which totally caught my eye. And right next to it was a very large, very tall birch tree. I kind of felt that this was the tree that I really wanted to connect to its energy and its wisdom. But as you see, deep within the forest floor there was some like burrows that had been dug out. And we have snakes where I live, and we have poisonous snakes. So I just wanted to double check before I got too close that there was nothing lurking about. There was no danger noodles there waiting to leap out at me. Not that snakes leap, but you know what I'm saying. So I just wanted to be really vigilant and double check just to be on the safe side. So I took a walk around again just to make sure. The patterns on the bark were really drawing me to it, and I really wanted to make a connection to the birch, and ask it as well if it was okay to connect to its energy and its wisdom. And that's exactly what I did. I asked it if it was okay that I touched it and connected to its energy and wisdom. And it was. I really wanted to cuddle the tree, I have to say, but I didn't because I couldn't, you know, hold my camera and cuddle the tree at the same time. One step at a time. So I stood with my back to the tree and shuffled my cards, the Wild Unknown, and this card leapt out and flew across and landed on the forest floor. So I retrieved it and, yeah, pulled a second card, and that was the Three of Cups. And as you'll notice, the Eight of Swords is the same card that that I drew by the tree with the roots. So I see someone's started to build a little cubby hole there, or at least gathering some bits and pieces to build with. Must be quite a popular spot. But apart from that, I didn't see anybody. It was really, really lovely just to be by myself in the woods, soaking up the atmosphere. So as I was standing with my back to the tree, I noticed this stone right in front of me, which I felt was perfect for an altar. And the flat surface was perfect for drawing cards, which is exactly what I decided to do. I decided to use it for another tarot spread. So this was my view from the stone, looking straight at the tree that I wanted to connect with. So I set up my camera and I took out my Wild Unknown tarot deck, which was hopefully going to do the job. And I started shuffling and I started to draw some cards. Now, before I went out into the woods, when I was still at home by my altar, I used the Wild Unknown tarot deck to draw a couple of cards before going out on this little adventure. And I pulled the Hierophant and I pulled the King of Cups. So there you'll see I drew the Hermit. And then I drew the Hierophant again. And I shuffled for the last time. And I even pulled the King of Cups one more time, which was really interesting because they were the same cards that I pulled before leaving this morning to go out into the woods. Then I decided to take forward the Faceted Gardens Oracle. I decided to take a draw from that deck as well. Again, I shuffled the cards. And I drew a card that I felt drawn to, which was Fountain. So I had a quick skim over the cards. Now, unfortunately, I still felt a little bit anxious about being outside for the first time with my deck. So I just took a really quick scan of the cards, and I didn't really look at the message too deeply. I decided to take the cards back home with me, sit at my altar, and journal and look at the message in my own time, and really decipher the message properly. So I started to make my way back to along the path and home, and I saw this little fellow, which is a woodpecker, and I heard him, tapping away at a tree, and I located him, and he was actually on a birch tree. And the second I got my camera out, he stopped tapping, which is typical. And he kind of, I felt he was kind of looking at me a bit like, what are you doing, filming me? And he had a bit of a scratch. And so I thought, I'll leave him to his own devices. And the minute I turned my camera off, he started tapping again, which isn't that typical. And I continued on my merry way. So that's it. That's my mini forest adventure. I did it. I took my Wild Unknown tarot out into the Wild Unknown, and I did my first reading. And it was amazing. I'm so glad I did it. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it really was to me. I felt quite anxious while I was there doing it. But as time went by, I kind of relaxed into it. And now I'm looking forward to my second and my third and my fourth reading. So watch this space. I'm hoping to take you along again for some more readings in the forest very soon.